What are some useless scary facts? You can have a heart attack and die at any second because of a heart problem you never knew about. There's one called Brugada syndrome which has no physical evidence and most people aren't diagnosed with it until they drop down dead and testing is done on immediate family members. It's genetic, and one of them is diagnosed with it. Happened to my father. We found out because I'm the one tested who has it. My uncle and brother got the all clear. Chances are my granddad has it too, 4 heart attacks since he was in his mid-40s. Bedbugs can survive for up to a year without feeding under the correct temperatures. As adults, the females can lay 300 eggs in their lifetimes. You could be spending thousands of dollars and eventually just get infested again. And bedbugs are making a comeback after almost being eradicated. Pumpkins equals berries. I'm sorry Redditors, but it had to come to this. Edit: for anyone who doesn't believe me, here is the link to the Wikipedia page which has a larger list of botanic berries. https://n.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/berry_botany. Stay strong if your known world is unraveling. There is a theory in quantum cosmology. It is the hypothesis that our universe is actually a false vacuum, meaning that it isn't in its most stable possible configuration. Think of a ball rolling on a surface having several local minima, dents in the surface, but there is only one global minima, the dent which is the deepest. The ball may be in one of the dents which is not the deepest one. So, it is stable for now, but, given the chance it will slide to the deepest dent, which is the lowest energy configuration possible, the so-called true vacuum. Now the interesting part. If our universe is, indeed, in a false vacuum, due to something called quantum tunneling, it may tunnel into the true vacuum, creating a bubble of lower energy. Once this lower energy bubble is formed, it expands, engulfing the entire universe, destroying everything we know as is, and creating new laws of physics. The speed of expanding is the speed of light, so we would have no information whatsoever about it before it hits us. We will literally never see it coming. The really scary, and really useless part. There is absolutely nothing we can do about it. You've probably walked past a murderer. Edit: thank you for telling me your personal stories, they were really interesting to read. I've gotten kissed by a murderer as a baby. WTF. That's it. I sneezed 3 times yesterday. How about you talk some more about that tidbit of info? My dad worked at Red Lobster and brought me in to meet some of the co-workers. One of them was a known gang member and was dating someone else who worked there. My dad was very careful as a result. The gang member and his girlfriend came over and asked to hold me. The gang member then made a comment on how cute I was, then kissed me on the forehead. A week later he murdered his girlfriend. Years ago I saw an episode of Monsters Inside Me where this guy was doing something outside and a fly flew into his eye. It only made contact for about a microsecond, but it was enough time for it to lay eggs. After they hatched, they started eating his eye from the inside and he was starting to go blind until a doctor figured out what was wrong. Ever since then I get super paranoid whenever a fly goes anywhere near my face because of the scary fact that something like this could possibly happen to me. Lake Superior has dead bodies from the 1920s. With freezing temperatures and a lack of oxygen, bodies don't decompose at the rate they would under normal conditions. Sure, they don't look as fresh as the day they died, in fact they're covered in bodily fat from saponification, but they can be recognized as human remains. In fact, There's been this ongoing debate because of the ship SS Edmund Fitzgerald that sank in the 70s, because scuba divers wanted to explore it but the families of the deceased were upset because this is basically a mass grave. There's a YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician that just did an episode on this, and I really recommend it. She goes a lot more in depth about the facts, and even went out there to talk with a surviving Fitzgerald relative. Big fin squids. Also 95% of the ocean hasn't been properly explored, so who knows what could be down there. One of my cool internet moments last year was finding this video of the first recording of a living sinuous Asperothes mangoldae squid. The Nautilus crew had just filmed it, not knowing what it was, only to find out later. And they just posted it on YouTube for the rest of the world to see. We live in a really cool time, technologically speaking. It is currently believed that all quantum fields in the universe have reached their vacuum state, but we're not actually sure about the Higgs boson field. If the Higgs boson is actually in a false vacuum, then at any time, that field might collapse. To the layman, that event would lead to three things. All laws of chemistry are changed or undone. The standard model of physics is wrong. A sphere of expanding energy centered on the source of the collapse would radiate throughout the universe, destroying all matter in its way, into infinity. All because one quantum field might not be at its lowest energy level, like we think it should be. Not exactly useless, but there have been quite a few men who have died at the Grand Canyon, because they thought it would be cool to take piss over a ledge, only to lose their balance. This is why you go to the Grand Canyon and start a business where men can strap into harnesses attached to a pole to safely piss off the side. Let's be honest, while a lot of people may not think of it when they're up there, if you put the thought in their head they'll want to do it. Scientists don't know what matter is like inside neutron stars, but some theorize it's a kind of strange matter that, if it exists, may turn everything it touches into strange matter. If two neutron stars collide, which does happen, microscopic strange matter particles could fly through space until they eventually reach Earth, at which point the planet and everything on it would turn into strange matter and be destroyed. Just because you're dead, doesn't mean you immediately stop perceiving stimulations around you. It takes a bit for your brain to die of oxygen deprivation and shut down. So there's a good chance that when you die that you're trapped in your body realizing you're dead with no way to stop it. This fact has been semi-confirmed by people who experience temporary death in hospitals, and recall nurses and doctors rushing around them trying to revive them. Someone you love will probably get dementia, and it will fucking suck. The human brain is a machine, and like any machine it inevitably breaks down. Imagine a person you love. Imagine their mind starts dying before their body. They cease to be the person you knew, a little bit at a time. They lose their memories, the cherished and the mundane. Then they start looking at their loved ones in terror because nothing makes sense and everyone seems like a stranger. It's nature at its most cruel. Fuck dementia. Apparently the way anesthesia used to work wasn't that it killed pain but that it left you unable to move but still conscious, but with no ability to form memories, so you just woke up later with no memory of what you went through, but you did go through it. Kind of like when you get blackout drunk and wake up the next day with no recollection of having done that thing. But you did do it and were conscious of doing it at the time. A church in the Czech Republic known as the Sedlec Ossery or Church of Bones has decoration of skulls and other human bones. It is known for this church to hold remains of up to 40,000 humans. For housing the remains of 40,000 humans, the entire church is about the size of a one-bedroom house. It's kind of depressing when numbers don't add up the way you think they should. Churchill reportedly was once drinking with friends on a ship and bragged to the others that he drank enough in his lifetime to fill the room. One of the others, a mathematician, did some back-of-napkin estimates and told him it was unlikely the room would be filled more than 6 inches. Churchill was fairly depressed by that revelation. When the Spartacan revolt was put down, the legions placed 6,000 crucified slaves alongside the Appian Way, the main road leading to Rome. Imagine walking for miles into DC, with the screams of men accompanying you every step of the way, hundreds upon hundreds of people being nailed to wood and left to rot. There have been 32 reported broken arrow incidents in the USA since 1950, many more in former Soviet countries and other nuclear powers. A broken arrow incident is basically an accident where they lost a nuclear weapon. Edit: apparently losing a weapon is called an empty quiver incident. I dunno how useless this is, but you are never 100% safe. Think about it, no matter what scenario you put yourself in, there will always be some sort of countermeasure. Let's say you built a concrete room that is 10 inches wide with no doors and windows underground. An earthquake could happen, a sinkhole could open up, a ravine could open up, etc. No matter how safe a situation sounds, it can never be 100% safe. Edit: however, it is good at making people paranoid too. Does this mean people with autoimmune disorders or immunodeficiency like HIV are more susceptible to cancer? That's an interesting question, I never thought of that before. Science Guy PLS answer. I can say that despite the similar names, HIV and autoimmune disorders couldn't be more different. HIV destroys the immune system. Autoimmune disorders are caused by the immune system attacking your own body. I've never heard the fact that they said about cancer cells and your immune system. I know that usually when a cell goes cancerous, it takes care of itself and undergoes apoptosis, a very cool word meaning self-destruction. Then the immune system eats the leftovers to clean up the area. So if the fact they stated is true, then having HIV would increase chances of cancer. Autoimmune disorders would not. However, since a lot of people who have autoimmune disorders are on immunosuppressants, then, if what they're saying is true, it could lead to increased cancer rates. Hope that helps. How much do you know about your great-grandparents? Because in 50 to 100 years, that will be how much the world knows about you. Edit: for those of you stating that information storage and accessibility will allow everyone to easily look back into the past, I challenge you to run a game designed for Windows 95. Point being, information storage is not a ubiquitous system, and as the architecture of software and hardware changes, there is certainly a possibility that some systems will require specialized tools and equipment to access. Furthermore, social media is the highlight reel of history, not the story. Very few people show their true selves in their Twitter or Facebook feed. Also a number. There is a guy in the world who died from the most minor injury. And somehow, this half-bothered comment is the one that turns out to have thousands of upvotes. My grandma told us that she had a great-uncle who had plucked a nose hair and then he had died from an infection from it. This was supposedly in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when personal hygiene wasn't at its best. Don't know if the story is true or not, but it's stuck with me for years. The stronger the gravitational field, the longer time is. This said, black holes have the strongest gravitational pull in existence, and as it pulls you apart atom by atom, time will slow down the closer you get. Because of this, Near the center your pain will be limitless and time will practically stop around you as you feel this pain. Just FYI. Pooping can kill you because of a major nerve that is involved in the heart. The vagus nerve. Usually it just causes fainting. In my case it just makes me nauseous. It's a fun nerve. If a UFC fighter chokes another fighter unconscious, it's partly from stimulus of the vagus nerve in the neck. That thing gets around. Edit, apparently the more correct form is vagus nerve, vagal is of or pertaining to vagus. Fixed it here. Have you ever heard of light fastness? Well, do you know all of those crayons, pencils, and marker drawings you made as a child? They are all faded now. Light fastness is a property of a colorant such as dye or pigment that describes how resistant to fading it is when exposed to light. A lot of art supplies are very not light fast and will fade. Smile, everything fades away and dies someday. Smile, even you. Edit, I mean that if it's exposed to light, the sun and artificial, and the air, it's going to fade, but if it's protected and in a dark place it won't fade as much. A standard uranium fission reactor loses a significant portion of its energy of fission as neutrino, not to be confused with neutron, radiation that is not stopped by shielding. In fact, the entire Earth is unlikely to stop a neutrino. But that's nothing. You are being bombarded with even more neutrino radiation from the sun, day and night. Night too, because, again, the entire thickness of the Earth does not effectively stop neutrinos. However, the thing is, neutrinos are insubstantial ghost particles. They pass through anything without having any effect whatsoever except in very rare cases. They are phenomenally difficult to detect, because they almost never interact with the detector, even the best designs we can think of. The notorious serial killer, cannibal, and sex fiend Jeffrey Dahmer, who killed at least 17 young men and boys, was likely driven to his homicidal urges after suffering brain damage due to a lack of oxygen during a relatively routine surgery to repair a hernia at the age of 4. Pretty much everyone who knew him said he was a happy and outgoing child until that surgery, and then he became emotionally subdued and distant. Many serial killers and mass shooters, and violent repeat offenders in general, have a history of brain damage or head injury suggesting possible brain damage. Your body can kill itself just to get rid of a foreign organism. Alternatively, it can attack itself because it mistakes something harmless as harmful. I have celiac disease, never had an issue with gluten until 22, when my body essentially up and decided that gluten was now very bad and attacking my intestines was a great idea.